Hungry to know what it takes to succeed in the food industry today? We'll satisfy your craving right here on the Leadership Voice. Welcome to the Leadership Voice. I'm your host, Jay Barbuto. Today's show is about the new normal in the food industry, and we have two dynamic guests that are serving up great tips to help you with your business. Joining us today is Victoria Ho, a storytelling guru and co-founder of Sherpa CPG, as well as Clara Paye, founder and CEO of Unite Food. Dr. Min Choi will be delivering our leadership lesson. Let's whet our appetite with today's quote of the day. Today's quote comes from Marcus Samuelsson. Without food, we cannot survive, and that is why issues that affect the food industry are so important. Our first guest today is Victoria Ho. Inspired by the universal power of food to spark, nourish, and celebrate human connection, Victoria is a brand strategist, storyteller, and formulation consultant who helps wellness-driven brands define their purpose and positioning, amplify their authentic voice, and bring meaningful, engaging innovation to the table. Drawing from a decade of experience as a brand owner, Victoria co-founded Sherpa CPG, an innovation development agency, in 2019 to help natural food and beverage brands streamline the concept to commercialization process. Please welcome great person and friend, Victoria Ho.
Hi, Jay. So honored to be here today. Thank you.
It's great to have you on the show. You know, Victoria, a lot of people may not know what a brand strategist is. Could you tell us what is a brand strategist?
Of course. So in a nutshell, a brand strategist will help your company understand the unique value that you bring to your customers. Really refining that and creating a foundation for your brand identity, design, messaging, and everything that comes with building a brand is focused on.
And so when would a company need a brand strategist?
I always feel sooner than later is good for companies that are starting out. You need usually an outside perspective to help you really gel what your brand looks like in a mirror to consumers. For older brands, I also think, if you've lost your spark as a brand, or if you've kind of outgrown your initial maybe mission, a brand strategist from the outside looking in can really help you kind of re-energize what your purpose was from day one and help retranslate that for the future.
It's almost like building a bridge between their concept to the rest of the world or to the consumer. That's terrific. So when should a person, or there's lots of people that think, oh, I should start my own company, or I should do this, or I should do that. When should a person give serious consideration, maybe think about starting a business?
Kind of when you wake up in the morning and you can't not want to do this other thing. In food particularly, sometimes it's easier to look about why you shouldn't start a company. And some top-level things for that would be, if everyone else is telling you to, or if you're just bored with your current job, or looking to have maybe an easier life. Owning and starting a company is not that. The last thing I would say is, think very carefully about whether you really want to start a business or if you want to expand how you pursue your hobby. Because, starting a business that has a trajectory of growth is very different from just running a company.
And so not every hobby should be a company.
Unfortunately, no, but that doesn't mean your hobby can't be glorious and fulfilling and bring joy to many people. But starting a company, absolutely, you have to look at your own skills, your humility, and understand that at some point you're going to be building a team, not just creating a product.
Thank you, thank you. So a lot of people have been manufacturing food, producing food, selling food during this pandemic. And now we're moving into this new normal. And a lot of people are wondering, how is the food industry changing here in the new normal? What's going to be different moving forward?
Absolutely. I think, everyone probably in any industry has heard the term, supply chain issues over the past couple years. That's going to continue to be very, very prevalent. And for food brands, I would say continue to operate with integrity. So, if you can't get a certain ingredient, or if you have to switch suppliers, even if you have to switch a formulation because one ingredient is just not going to be available for the foreseeable future, really buckle in as a team, look at what you've promised to your customer, and keep that as your North Star. Also, I think with wellness, it's understanding as we sort of attempt to lift ourselves out of the past couple years of maybe hibernation or isolation, that there is a huge yearning for connection with brands. And I think especially for entrepreneurs or startups, take advantage of that and really sell your story and show that value of, adding a layer of care and intention into your product matters to consumers who are understanding food to not just nourish them physically, but emotionally.
Oh, that's terrific advice. A lot of companies don't succeed. And a lot of the times the reasons why they may not succeed could be varied. Mm-hmm. But what are some mistakes that you've seen new business owners make that have really prevented them from reaching the success they could have otherwise made? Or what are some of the pitfalls that you might warn people against?
The first one that always comes into my mind is that you either listen to every opinion or you've decided you need to listen to none. So, being swayed by too much advice is dangerous. I think that shows that you haven't had enough confidence or experience in what you're attempting to do to actually start that business. So maybe you need to, take a couple courses, speak to a few more colleagues in the industry, educate yourself a little bit before you just dive in. On that flip side, it is, once you're really gaining traction, building your brand, surrounding yourself with quality people that you trust and that are smarter and better at at certain things than you, and trusting them to do their jobs and not keeping people in silos within departments, really encouraging collaboration that will help you grow. The other thing is is much more logistical. If you don't have the financial runway to really see into the next 2 to 3 years of your company, maybe it's very smart to figure out where you're going to get that funding, because the food industry, if you're going to scale, requires a lot of money up front to do things correctly so that you can focus on growing and sales and running the company. And lastly, I think, as far as mistakes go, of which I've made many, in the food industry in particular, I think not doing enough research on who you're selling your product to. Your family may love it, your best friends may tell you it's the greatest thing that they've ever seen or heard, but are they going to buy it? So really doing your homework on what problem you're solving as a brand for enough people that are going to justify you spending and investing your blood, sweat, and tears in this.
I loved several of the things you just talked about. That finding that sweet spot of advice, of not listening to every single opinion that comes your way, but also not necessarily closing yourself off to potentially some great expert advice that might be around you. And so it sounds like the answer is somewhere in the middle.
Yes, go ahead and read every Amazon review if you need to, but there's always going to be people telling you that you're a couple degrees off from perfection. So again, as long as you know what value you're bringing to the table and you can kind of proof up to that with attributes and your story and your integrity, you're fine.
And then the other part was the financial side. Do you see a lot of businesses, sometimes they don't they underestimate some of the capital that might be required to really realize their
Absolutely. I think what's tricky in the food industry, in CPG in particular, is that it does not take a lot of capital to do a prototype of a product, the way it might in tech or machinery. Clearly, I don't know what I'm talking about because I'm not in those industries, but creating a recipe or a batch of cookies does not take too much investment. However, scaling that in a way that's commercially viable with wholesale suppliers, and then understanding you have to also add margin for distributors, brokers, marketing, etc., it can become staggering if you don't do your homework on what it is going to take just to enter the market with enough steam that will help your brand get exposure to audiences that are outside of your direct community or network.
No, that's great. And the third thing that you mentioned is getting in touch with your customers and really making sure that you understand who they are, so that you understand the people that you're serving, and you talk about the problem that you're solving. I guess if we don't know our customers, how will we ever know that we're going to be meeting their needs or their wants?
Absolutely, and I love the way you put that. Something I often tell brands I work with, when they're struggling to figure out who they are as a brand, is who you are is directly a reflection of who you serve. So the beautiful thing about food is that there's very few industries where everyone truly is a consumer. And the buy-in for food, even the most expensive premium product on the shelf, is still not a car. It's not even a pair of shoes. It's not a phone or any other tangible thing that gives you kind of immediate fulfillment. So taking advantage of the fact that you have a little bit more flexibility as a food brand to kind of capture more of an audience than other industries, but then also understanding you're not meant for every person at all, and you don't want to be exclusive. The more welcoming you can be with your value propositions to your specific audience, the stronger they are going to share or advocate for you, and the more trust that they're going to have in you. And that is the absolute pinnacle that we're all striving for, is how do I get my consumer to trust me as a brand?
This is great advice. And these are the kinds of things that a brand strategist can help a company stay focused.
Absolutely.
And make sure they're doing these things. So what advice would you give a new entrepreneur? Someone says, I want to start my own company. I want to start my own food company. What advice would you give a new entrepreneur that's just about to start their company?
Sure. Take your ego first, leave it at the door. Get ready to hear, 70 no's to every maybe. And then also, I think, before you claim to disrupt your category, the industry, etc., make a commitment to simply deliver. Do what you say your brand is going to do. And never shy away from taking the opportunity to defend your brand, your product, in terms of celebration. You should never feel people are attacking you when they ask you why your thing is better than the next guy's thing. Be a champion for yourself and advocate and have confidence.
Those are perfect words of wisdom. Victoria, I want to thank you for being on the show today. And you're going to stick around to be part of our panel in just a little while?
Absolutely.
Terrific. And now it's time for a featured segment of the Leadership Voice. It's today's Did You Know? Today's Did You Know comes from Statista.com. In 2020, snack bars were consumed by over 44 million. By 2024, this will grow to over 45 million. So next time you're feeling a little snacky, know that you are not alone. It's now time for our Leadership Countdown. Today's countdown comes from Investopedia.com. We bring you the 4 countries that produce the most food. Number 4, Brazil. Number 3, the United States of America. Number 2, India. And the number 1 country in the world for food production is China. Stick around, we have Clara Paye here in the studio, coming up right after this commercial break.
Well, we found here at Honda Center and the Anaheim Ducks that the Center for Leadership brings expertise in doing research, in doing training. The faculty that has come and given the training to our employees does all the research themselves. They're not pulling this information off the shelf. They're out there researching themselves, talking from firsthand experience, and it brings such a level of competency that we, again, don't find from other trainers that are on the market.
Well, simply put, is what really differentiates and distinguishes Fullerton and the Center for Leadership, really is your expertise. You guys are able to create customized content for our business based on true research.
The faculty from Cal State Fullerton, obviously they're professors of their field. They have deep knowledge and research, but also, aside from the theory, they really bring in some practical examples, and they bring in a lot of interactive activities.
The Bringing Learning to Work initiative is our way of meeting the needs of Orange County businesses and communities. When our clients ask the Center for Leadership to come to bring learning to work, the clients know that they're getting cutting-edge information, the latest thinking in the field, but they're also getting world-class training. Welcome back to the Leadership Voice. Our next guest is Clara Paye. She's a first-generation immigrant and a second-generation entrepreneur. Clara worked in her family business for 17 years before launching her own Unite Food. As founder and CEO of Unite Food, her mission is to build a bigger, more inclusive wellness table, one where everyone is invited to have a seat. Unite launched in March 2020 with a line of delicious protein bars in culturally diverse flavors. Growing quickly over the past 18 months, Unite is sold in major retailers nationwide and online. Clara is a founding member of Included, a group that serves minority CEOs and founders in CPG. Clara, it is so great to have you on the show today. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. I'm delighted to be here.
So a lot of people have thought, wow, maybe I should start a company. Maybe I should, maybe I shouldn't. But you've done this now, and you've been part of a family business. Could you talk about why you decided to start Unite Food?
Sure. So my inspiration came from a need that was unmet in my own life. So in my family business, it was very busy. It was a large company, and I was running it. And I was always hungry at my desk and didn't have time to eat, so I would just power down these protein bars, and they always just didn't taste that great to me. They were chalky, and one day I just realized that they were all the same flavor, and that was what was missing. Every single protein bar, there's no shortage of protein bars on the market. And but I had this epiphany one day where I realized, gosh, there's so many choices, but they're all the same flavor still. They're all lemon or peanut butter or chocolate or blueberry, and there wasn't any diversity to them. And so you touched upon this, but I'm an immigrant. And so there's this big disconnect in wellness of flavor. And so flavors are really just made in one lane. And I thought that I could change that. And to be honest, I was very naive. I knew nothing about food. I come from plumbing, so just no connection there whatsoever. But my necessity, got it kicked off, and I started formulating in my kitchen. And, now we're sold in over 2,000 stores less than 2 years later.
And that's amazing. And your first big client was Walmart, right?
Yeah, our first big opportunity was Walmart, which is not how I intended, or foresaw that we would even have that opportunity within the first 5 years, let alone the first, year of business. And so we launched at Walmart stores. We're in about 750 of them. And it was a great way to launch our brand and get a lot of attention.
A lot of people think that when they're in school, they're just going through the motions, they're doing projects, and nothing really amounts to anything. But when you were in school, you did a special project in which you had to do a marketing strategy for
Walmart. Yeah, it's a full circle life moment for me, for sure. So I got my MBA here at Cal State Fullerton and met my husband in the MBA program. And the very first project we ever worked on was in a consumer marketing class. Now, keep in mind, I was working in the plumbing industry at the time. And so I was applying consumer marketing to plumbing, but our first project was crafting a consumer marketing strategy for Walmart. So my husband and I did that project together, fell in love in the process, and got married. And now, 16 years later, we are launching consumer marketing strategy for our own brand at Walmart. So everything kind of has a way of working out.
But it sends a great message to all students out there who are working on projects and working on different things. They never know that they might be creating incredible building blocks for their own future.
For sure.
Absolutely. So a lot of folks would say that it's really challenging to start a business, to start any business. But starting a business during the pandemic must have been an amazing thing. How did you launch Unite Food during the pandemic?
So really interesting. We were going to launch our product, and our big debut was at this big trade show here in town called Expo West. And we had our booth set up, and literally the morning before the show was set to start, it was canceled because of the pandemic. And so, you know, I was kind of left a little bit worried because I had no Rolodex. I knew nobody in food. All I knew were, you know, my co-packers had made my product for me, and I'd formulated that along with them. And I was just kind of a little bit panicked about how are we going to get our product sold, and how are people going to learn about me if I didn't have this major expo to depend on. And so what did I do? You know, it was like everybody else, we went online, and, you know, I started networking on LinkedIn and met these great people. And within a week, you know, a show called BevNet Radio with Ray Latif is like one of the most popular podcasts in the food industry. And he interviewed all the entrepreneurs that didn't get a chance to debut at Expo. So the industry really rallied around entrepreneurs like me. And because our product serves and his mission is to bring more diversity to wellness, our social mission, it was just a trending topic in America that, you know, we didn't have a crystal ball to know that was going to happen. So everything kind of aligned for us. And, you know, 2 months later, we were on the cover of Food and Beverage magazine with a story about how Unite was bringing diversity to wellness. And it was a 2-page ad, basically, in Food and Beverage magazine. So, you know, I was so silly, I didn't even know who the cover man was. It was Post Malone. And I just thought he was like a chef. I just had to ask my husband, like, who's this tatted up man on this cover? And he's like, that's Post Malone. So it really hit me then that we had, you know, hit a major inflection point in building our brand, that it was really relevant.
You know, it was amazing that when you described the launching of your business, you're describing to us this way that you had to adapt and that you had to be agile. And one of the skills people have said is one of the most important skills to get through or to survive the pandemic and even moving into the new normal. Could you talk about how Unite and you as the CEO and founder of Unite, how you've had to continuously stay agile during this process?
I mean, for sure. So the bar industry, on top of dealing with the pandemic, normal things that people are dealing with kids working, you know, being at home and dealing with, you know, mass issues just in the home life. You know, our bar category was hit with a 50% decline during the pandemic because on-the-go eating occasions really disappeared. So you think about where you consume a product. So, you know, for lots of food products, they enjoyed a big boom. Like if you were chips or you were cookies, you know, people were at home comfort eating. But bars, you ate on the go. You ate to be healthy. You ate at the gym, at your kid's soccer practice, in your car, on the plane, on the train. So we had a double whammy of a declining industry, but that actually created opportunity. So I always say, don't waste a good crisis. And there's an opportunity in that crisis. And, you know, many people told me, not another bar. How are you going to get another bar sold when nobody's buying bars and no buyers? And I had co-manufacturers tell me nobody's ever going to buy these, or, you know, really be, you know, super cynical. But, you know, I kind of have shown them we were able to find some white space in a very crowded category.
And that's wonderful. So moving forward, we always, companies, we're all talking about the new normal.
Yeah.
And how it's changing, and the way we've thought about business in the past is just changing.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you see Unite excelling in the new normal? What will be the key?
So consumers are smarter, right? Consumers are doing their due diligence. They're looking into who the leadership is of these businesses. What do they stand for? What kind of products are they actually putting out? And they become so inquisitive. And I think the companies that will stand out are the ones that meet their consumers where they are and don't think of their consumers as just like they don't know what they want, but really including them in the decisions. And then the other big part is staying in front of your supply chain. So, you know, building inventory, making sure you have product to sell. I mean, we launched at a major store last month and it sold out in the first week. They had to put a tag on there that said limit 2 per customer, right? And so that was shocking to me that it was going and selling that fast with no media and no marketing spend behind it. And so, people are hungry for new products, and if you can deliver something that's unique and you stand for something that's important and you invite them into your story, then you can stay ahead as long as you have the product. And it creates a big, significant opportunity if you're in stock and your competitor isn't. So many shelves are empty today. I don't know if you've been inside any of these mega stores lately, but many shelves are depleted and empty. And it's, the large businesses and the small businesses all suffering. So if you can stay one step ahead of your supply chain, you're really going to go far.
I think that's a terrific message to all companies that are trying to find their way here in the new normal. So if you could give advice to a person that wanted to start a food company, either a new brand or new products, what advice would you give a young entrepreneur that wanted to walk in this path and start their own food brand?
First and foremost, I would say build in a lot of margin, because this is a very expensive, high velocity, low margin business. And so you have to have the cash flow to be able to fund your business and to continue to reinvest in it. But the most important thing is to start. So many entrepreneurs are so worried, or potential entrepreneurs are so worried about the starting. And I find that, if you can get a minimum viable product made, so the most basic prototype that you can find, and then start to solicit feedback, do some surveying, see how people react to that product before you scale it into production, right? Make sure that your product can be the best possible product that it can be. And, the acronym for our industry is CPG. So the G is really important. The good has to be good. And the P, the packaging, has to be really good. Stands for consumer packaged goods. And I feel like if the P and the G are great, then the C, the consumer, will follow along. So if you have great packaging and a great product, the right consumers will find you.
Oh, that's terrific. And I know Victoria, when she was on, she talked a lot about the C and getting to know your consumers and knowing what they want. And it sounds like one of your competitive advantages that you've carved out is you're providing something that the consumers might not be able to get from other brands or from other products.
Our flavors are like churro and Mexican hot chocolate, so they're inclusive and they're flavors that nobody's ever kind of developed before. And we invite our consumers into the process by inviting them to tell us what flavors they want to see. And so we want to crowdsource our flavors. We want to crowdsource how we create our bars, because we don't think that we're smarter than the people eating our bars. We want to do it in unity with them, and we want the product to help them be nostalgic about flavors that they are craving.
Yeah, I think it's a great way to cap off this interview. Clara, I want to thank you for being on the show today and sharing your wisdom with our viewers. You'll stick around for our panel discussion coming up here?
I wouldn't miss it.
Terrific.
Thank you, Jay.
It's now time for our leadership example. Today's leadership example comes from shape.com. We bring you the best protein bars to quell hunger according to nutritionists. Pay special attention to number 7 for best tasting. It's now time for our leadership lesson. Today's leadership lesson is being delivered by Professor Min Choi.
I'm Dr. Min Choi, and here is today's leadership lesson. Sometime during the pandemic, we've all seen empty shelves in our favorite grocery stores, whether that's eggs, milk, or toilet papers. Did you know that upstream in the supply chain, producers were throwing away lots and lots of inventory that we were desperately waiting for? Consumers generally do not think much about how the food on our table is supplied. However, supply chain is complex, involving enormous infrastructure and workforce. So, what were the major challenges the food supply chain had faced during the pandemic? Processors were the hotbeds for COVID because of their work environment. They work shoulder to shoulder with no social distancing, they often commute together as a group, and the processors employ lots of migrant workers who may not have proper health insurance. Food manufacturing is also highly centralized, with a few large-scale processors handling most of the demand. So when the processors were shut down, farmers had no customers to sell their grains, meats, milk to, and the retailers did not have a secure supply. Restaurants were shut down and the customers had to cook more at home, thereby increasing grocery sales. On the consumer side, people became more health conscious and they were seeking convenience and the low cost at the same time. So what is going to be the new normal for the food industry? On the upstream side, technologies will help alleviate some of the problems we've seen. Robotics and smart farm technologies will reduce farmers' dependence on labor. AI will help farmers to examine various scenarios and prepare for the future disruptions better. The food supply chain itself will change a bit. The globally stretched out supply chain may get shortened a little bit to reduce lead time and decouple the mutual dependence. We may see more smaller scale local manufacturers in the future rather than relying on a few giant processors, which could become a bottleneck in times of disruptions like COVID. Food processors, retailers, and food services all need to rethink their supply chain strategies by rebalancing their optimum and looking for creative solutions. Food processors may modify their pack sizes and redirect their sales to retailers rather than restaurant services. Grocery stores will continue to expand their online capacity to meet the customers' demand for in-pack services. Restaurants will need to find a way to service customers remotely, perhaps by partnering with online food delivery platforms such as Postmates and Uber Eats. I'm Dr. Min Choi, and this has been your leadership lesson.
Thank you, Professor Choi, for that informative leadership lesson. It's now time for our leadership panel. Welcome back, Clara and Victoria. Thank you so much for rejoining us.
Thank you.
So we have 3 questions for you here in this panel discussion. These questions come from our audience. And the first question, and we'll have Victoria answer it first, is about wisdom. Victoria, what have you learned about the food industry that you wish you had known at the beginning?
So many things, but I think from the top level, for a CPG food brand, a lot of it becomes about food safety and ensuring that your product is viable to scale and is going to be consistently excellent. So it's not so much even about the product, which hopefully you've put all the time in to get to a place where it's scalable. But yeah, it is 100% about food safety and making sure that you protect consumers who have given you trust to buy your product.
Terrific. Now, Clara, could you talk about what you've learned that you wish you had known at the very beginning?
So I have this saying that I always say the best time to ask for directions is at the beginning of the trip. And so I'm very much, a very thoughtful person about laying out the foundation. And so I always surrounded myself with great advisors like Sherpa CPG or other consultants to help me bring forward the best possible product. But I think what I wish I would have known was just really listening more to my inner voice, because when you're doing something that's never been done before, many people can't see the path forward because they're so stuck in the industry that they know. And me being an outsider coming from plumbing was really my superpower, because I didn't have, I was naive enough that I didn't have all these preconceived notions of why something would or wouldn't work. So, I think a mistake that I made in the beginning was just giving other people's voices a little bit too much power, just because I was new to the industry. But I quickly realized that I did know what I was doing. I have a great product and it will sell well.
You know, a lot of people think that success is like this straight path where everything just goes well and there is success. Totally. But there's actually lots of ups and downs in this process. I want each of you to think about a mistake that you've made and how you've learned and grown and become better for it. I'm going to have Clara answer first. So Clara, can you think of and share a mistake that you've made, and how have you come out of that mistake even better?
Just one? There's so many.
Yeah, just choose your favorite one. Your favorite mistake.
I actually love what you said, because a lot of people think that if you have an issue in your business that you did something wrong. But solving issues is the definition of business. And so if you go into it with the mindset that you're expecting that something will go wrong, but knowing that you have the resources and the network to solve every problem that comes your way, gives you just like this position of power. And so a mistake that I can think of is, overbuying product packaging, thinking, okay, I'm going to save money if I buy it in bulk, not expecting that your formula might change or that you might have to tweak something. And so, it's better in the beginning to just buy the packaging you need on a run-by-run basis instead of over-investing, because you end up scrapping that and that costs you money.
Okay, so that would be one mistake.
Yeah.
Now, Victoria, you have a long history in the popcorn industry and lots of other opportunities in your role as a brand consultant. Can you describe or share with us a mistake that you made, wish you could have back, but that you've really learned from?
Again, just one is hard because I am just a walking scar that's been healed. But I think, in general, it's not knowing when to quit. And then to fail fast and recover from that. To map that onto an actual semi-embarrassing but now good learning is, there are certain buyers, one in particular that I used to pursue, and I mean email this guy, every single week. My letters would get longer because surely he's not really reading them all the way through and understanding, the power of my product. But you gradually learn, buyers are busy. They really want you to keep it brief. If you matter, you're going to matter. If now's not the time for you, kind of recalculate, pivot, put your energy where it's going to be absorbed and returned to you, and move on until it's the right timing. And that timing, if you're intentional with your pursuits, will happen, and be confident in that.
Oh, that's terrific. And those are actually two really good lessons, and it sounds like there's actually lots of lessons that we could have a show just about learning from things. But it's actually now time for the final word. So this is your chance to give some final pearl of wisdom to our viewers. So Victoria, we'll have you go first. What is your final word?
Be more excited by opportunities than you are afraid of the challenges. And as long as you are centered on your North Star and your purpose, pursue that with absolute integrity, but be flexible with yourself about how you get there.
Know where you're going, but be flexible about the path.
Yes.
Oh, that's terrific. Clara? What is your final word, final pearl of wisdom for our viewers?
I would say it's not to be a me too. Don't do something that you think that you can make a better of that already exists. Be different, because if you're going to display something on a shelf, that buyer needs to know why would they take a risk on a new brand. And so if you're not bringing a new customer to their set, if you're not doing something innovative, then it's not going to matter. And it only really truly comes out is when the product is authentic. And it's authentic to you. So find how you're different and make that your superpower, and then just start. Create the prototype in your kitchen. Don't overinvest in branding and all these things that you can invest in later. Just start with the product, make sure it's the best product possible, and the next steps will take care of themselves.
That's great, and that really gives us. There's the expression, keeping it simple, but it's really about keeping it prioritized, and. So thank you both for being on the show today and sharing your wisdom with our audience. It's greatly appreciated.
It was fun.
Thank you, Jay.
And there you have it, our final word. Thank you, Clara and Victoria, for joining us on today's show. If you have a question or need advice, connect with us by email, leadershipvoice@fullerton.edu, or by Twitter @CSUF_leadership. Today we explored the new normal in the food industry. Thank you again to Clara and Victoria for joining us, and special thanks to Professor Dr. Min Choi for delivering today's leadership lesson. Join us each episode of the Leadership Voice as we bring you insights to guide your leadership development. I'm Jay Barbuto, and on behalf of the Center for Leadership at Cal State Fullerton, we'll see you next time right here on the Leadership Voice.